Ready?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. And we're gonna have a happy Christmas. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first Christmas special of Tuesdays with Moire podcast, where we talk about some very strange and very hallmarky Christmas movies. I'm your host, Ian Taylor. Joining me tonight is my co-host, Devin Kane, my co-host, Stephen Beeson, and we have a special guest. Bernard, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Firstly, my name is Bernard Petillon. I'm originally from the Bahamas, but at present I'm here stationed in London, Ontario, Canada. I came here originally just to study. I went to Fanshawe College, matriculated into the School of Contemporary Media, where I undertook graduate certificates in advanced filmmaking and visual effects and editing for contemporary media, respectively. But however, right now I'm not currently working in that field because the pandemic kind of threw a little wrench in the wheel. So so that kind of still got on pause. Got paused a little bit, but yeah. So I'm just currently working at Valley Village, grinding for the man, just to get a payday, and
Oh yeah.
just trying to work on some stuff for myself. And for the meantime, yeah.
I can relate to that 100%.
Same here. I'm working. I'm
Yeah.
quite literally working
Well-
at a Goodwill outlet store at the moment. So
Other than coming from the Bahamas, I can relate to that 100%. Pretty much so. Very similar trajectory. This is
Yeah.
this is how they rope you in. They rope you in with all these aspirations of hey, you get to work in the film industry. Oh, and then a pandemic happens, and then everyone's screwed.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
any creative discipline, you find yourself having to work for yourself a lot, man.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Like
that's part of it.
what's the director of Mission Impossible, the last two Mission Impossible films name again?
oh, Christopher McQuarrie.
Chris
Yeah.
McQuarrie. Yeah. He said stop trying to break in and just make something.
Yeah, I
So
love
there you go.
directors have that
it's
mentality.
incumbent upon us just to create, and just
Mhm.
Words
create
to
and
live by.
put yourself out there.
Yeah. Exactly. Like any.
Well, I think even Scorsese said something like "make your own industry."
Didn't he straight up skip film school? Like I'm trying to remember in my head, like all the
I
directors
think
that kind of skipped.
Spielberg wasn't able to cut it to get into film school, if I remember clearly.
Yeah, that's right. And
Yeah.
Tarantino straight up skipped film school as well. Just went to making Reservoir Dogs.
And I think PTA skipped film school too.
Well, it just shows
Yeah.
that you don't necessarily need that kind of education to succeed. If you're passionate
I
about
actually-
something,
yeah.
it's going to show one way or
I
another.
saw Paul Thomas Anderson interviewed once, and he said that he got invited to a film school to give a speech or something, like encourage people. And he said that it was a miserable experience because the first thing that happened when he walked in the class, I guess it was like an opening day or something, and the teacher said to them, "If you're here to write the next Terminator 2, just get out." And Paul Thomas Anderson was like, "That's terrible advice. You could have a kid in here who's going to write the next big Terminator 2, and that's his vision, you know?" But
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. He's a cool guy, you know?
Oh yeah, he's married to
Yeah.
Maya Rudolph, so that kind of rubs off on his personality
Well,
a
and
little bit.
He also, he also said that Venom: Let There Be Carnage was one of his favorite movies this year.
He has some him and Tarantino have some very weird tastes. Oh yeah, that's. I mean, the first Venom was hilarious.
You
I'll
can
give
miss
that.
me on that one. You can miss me on that one, sir. I do not like any of those Venom films.
Yeah,
I
I
do
know.
not like any of them.
The first Venom's pretty funny, but for all the wrong reasons. So I'll still see the
I
sequel.
just love this story where Fiona Apple hung out with PTA and Quentin Tarantino once while on cocaine, and because of that experience, she quit cocaine.
Yeah,
Probably
Isn't
because they
Tarantino
are
just already on
insufferable
cocaine?
Film nerds.
Yeah.
They're probably just insufferable film nerds, and just having them in a room on cocaine, is just
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
too much energy.
No
that cannot
offense,
be
I haven't
contained.
done it myself, but they already look like they're on cocaine. Like, you see, like, Tarantino
Oh, yeah.
talking, he talks like he's on cocaine. Like, he's a fun guy to be around, but his energy would get obnoxious after a while. But that's just how some people are. Speaking
Yeah,
of
well,
a
very
high
passionate.
energy, we
Oh,
have some
boy.
high energy
Mhm.
Christmas films to talk about. First off,
Well,
a
number-
Christmas classic. otherwise known as Christmas Vacation.
Yes.
Should I introduce this one? Who wants to? Steven, you should introduce Silent
Sure.
Night, Deadly Night. But would you
Well,
guys mind if I introduce
Okay.
this one?
I do have a preamble just for this episode and
Oh, please
as a
do.
whole, just really quick. So, Christmas is a difficult time for a lot of people. This is when suicide and depression rates tend to skyrocket, ironically, because the whole season is about, it's supposed to be about family coming together, and it's supposed to be about good tidings and all this good cheer. This is the stuff that we have been taught growing up. This is what the meaning of Christmas supposedly is, that uh, Hallmark cards keep alluding to. Um, and the whole vision that I had for this episode when I proposed it, because this was my choice episode for this month, is I think the last thing that we need this year to tear your family apart is your taste in movies. So this is why we've got this Christmas variety pack, where we've got a, a Christmas classic that we're about to talk about, a cult classic, which we'll talk about a bit later, and then the unavoidable um, ubiquity of the Hallmark films, which we'll
Yay.
get to soon. But this is the Christmas family fun variety pack special tonight, and I'm very happy to get today into this. Starting with
Alright,
Christmas
look me up.
Vacation.
Holy shit, where's the Tylenol?
I could use some actually. I'm not feeling
Oh
great.
man.
Anyway.
Oh, hey. Good
Yeah, it's all
discussion.
good.
All right, and somehow Tylenol leads right into Christmas Vacation, which is a classic, a sequel of sorts to the very famous surprise hit Vacation. Nobody thought that film was going to be successful. A lot of people were miserable making it, but it was a huge success. Made the actors and producers a ton of money to the point where they wanted to try a Christmas version with Christmas Vacation. And we see the Griswolds once again getting into some fun family antics where they struggle very hard the whole Christmas this year, dealing with annoying neighbors, annoying family members, anything anybody can relate to. And, by the end, they try to have a nice, happy Christmas, but a bit of chaos happens along the way. You kind of know where this film is going already. And Santa lights on fire at the end of the movie. That's Christmas Vacation in a nutshell. I saw this film quite a few years ago in high school. Like it's that kind of movie, where it's like it's interesting from the perspective of like National Lampoon released like Animal House around this time. I think they were like starting to get into films like Van Wilder and American Pie not too long after. So like it tries to be this like edgy, like, yeah, god, these hot chicks and people flipping each other off and guys like peeing on the side of the road saying like your dad's Christmas movie, but at the same time it has to be like this wholesome Christmas family movie. So it's just constantly skirting that line of like wholesome, like silly family humor and Shrek, kind of like Shrek edgy humor, and it's just constantly balancing between that. And I found that kind of fascinating. Like it's very much a product of the time in that sense, and it's a fun movie. It's nothing special, but it doesn't need to be. I think it's really carried by the supporting cast. I really don't like Chevy Chase at all, which we'll get into, but
Oh wow.
I'm curious
That's
to hear
not
what you guys think. Yeah, hot take.
Well, go ahead, guys. Sorry.
No worries.
Who wants to open the floor here? I think we
So-
all have a lot to say here.
I find this is a hard movie to talk about just because it's one that I've always been familiar with. This thing is literally on TV every single Christmas, and a lot of my time is spent around this movie. Like I would look forward to it. I remember I would be watching CBC television, which is the Canadian broadcast channel, for those not in the know, and this would be on basically every year. And so my connection to this film was always watching it on TV with my dad, who would appreciate the humor more so than my mom, and and my other siblings. And this is just one of those films that gets you in the mood for the season. And so it would always be connected to seeing it on TV. And with TV, there's obviously like commercial breaks, and there's always a lot of Christmas ads. And I was a pretty lonely child, so I spent a lot of time in front of the television. But what was interesting, Ian, I came out of that, And at one point, we did watch this at high school, which is weird. Like around Christmas season, I guess the teachers are kind
Great
of out of
minds think
steam,
alike.
and they and they like to show this. But what I found so fascinating, I remember watching this in music class of all places, and I remember how empty it felt in contrast to seeing it on TV as a kid. Like there are certain moments of quietness and certain moments of, I don't know how to describe it, but it just had a completely different vibe watching it totally in
Not as many
isolation.
people laughing.
Which, yeah, like it wasn't as there weren't as many laughs. There was like all the scenes where Chevy Chase is like looking at this young girl and he's fantasizing about her, and it's like a lost cause kind of fantasy, just like
In another
this like,
life, yeah.
yeah, and I don't know what it is about it. It was just had a completely different vibe watching it alone, which is why I wasn't so surprised seeing the Roger Ebert review where they didn't like it when it first came out. And it's weird how like that kind of makes sense to me now when I watch it in isolation. I still enjoy the film like nostalgically, but there is something about it that yeah, like depending how you see it, like if it's on TV, it feels like a community thing. Like everybody is sitting down and watching this together, and everyone's in the mood for it. And you have all these exciting commercials kind of cut in between. But when you see it in isolation, there's parts of it that don't ring quite as merry.
Well, it's like any
There's some
other comedy. It gets a lot better when you watch it with other people because other people laugh and you feel the urge to laugh with them. It's infectious. And
so
when you take that way,
yeah, I'm very much in two different minds about this, and that's what I find fascinating about it.
for Christmas
Well,
vacation of all films.
Yeah, so I didn't actually have the nostalgic sort of connection to it. This was my first time watching this.
Oh, really?
Really?
Oh wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, it is. So I thought it was good. I definitely agree with you that it's. I feel like it would probably be better with a group or a family or something. I also think that like telling someone a joke from this movie like would be like if you told it to someone they would laugh, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it has that
Mhm.
quality where
Yeah,
it's
it's
like
very
you
quotable.
kind of need,
Like, hey kids, look at the
yeah,
reindeer.
well no, and you need that sort of sense of community, which Chevy Chase was on Community. Hey, anyway.
Hey, and he was my least favorite
um
character.
yeah, but no, I mean it's a good, it's a good movie. It's very competent. It's very well made. I laughed a couple of times throughout the movie. There's some funny jokes. It's not bad. It's very
It's fine. Like, it's fine
yeah,
for what
it's
it
very
is.
inoffensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really challenging. It's not really groundbreaking. This is actually the third Christmas. This is actually the third vacation film in the series.
I forgot to mention that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was National Lampoon's Vacation. There was the European Vacation.
That's right.
Then there was Christmas Vacation. And then there was Vegas Vacation.
We
which-
need to
Mhm.
nail down the timeline of these films.
Well, Vegas Vacation didn't even have National Lampoon attached to it. It was its own thing.
It's also
and
a
that
huge
was,
flop, right? Like, it barely
oh,
made any
massive
money.
flop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the biggest flops of
and-
Chevy Chase's career.
And then we can't forget the very forgettable remake of Vacation.
We do not speak of
Oh,
that
wow.
movie. We do
Yeah.
not speak of
Who,
that. Ed
who-
Helms
who-
said
who are the
comedy.
lead actors in that one again?
Ed Helms
Who-
was in the remake, like Chris Hemsworth, and Ed Helms in
Oh my
comedy is
God.
just. I don't think I've liked Ed Helms in a single comedy. He just always plays the same lame loser character and does it badly. Like, he doesn't even do it well. But he sticks to that shtick in every single comedy he's in. And he does the same in the Vacation movie. I couldn't even finish the Vacation remake, but on the other hand, I'm curious to see what Bernard thinks of Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
Well,
definitely.
I have to piggyback on just about everything you guys contributed to the conversation so far, in that it does hold a very, very heartfelt, nostalgic place for me, because the first time I watched it, I was about 12 years old. And I remember the date exactly.
Mm.
It was Christmas 1995, in fact. I was in seventh grade.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I kid you not.
Wow.
So we have a local station back home called ZNS. Some people who are British would probably say ZNS. They would play Christmas movies and shows and animated stop motion films every year. So there's a certain let's say there's a certain cachet of content that we grew up watching. Everything from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer stop motion. That's Rankin
Oh
Bass
yeah.
Yeah.
classics.
See,
Jack
I
Frost,
think
all
CBC
those.
played a lot of the same stuff. It was very much a very similar experience on CBC.
Hmm.
Yeah, but this year, 1995, when uh during that Christmas season, they decided to broadcast Gremlins on a Monday night, and the following night was the Olsen Twins comedy that we saw, Christmas comedy. Then on the Wednesday night, they played National Lampoon Christmas Vacation, which ended up just that night becoming a family favorite, and we would look forward to it every year. In addition to that, there was also
Oh,
like Sleepless in Seattle and several other films that they played on our local station then. So every year since 1995, I look forward to Christmas Vacation. But the thing that makes it most enjoyable is indeed the community. When you have like a family together, a family unit together, watching things together,
Hmm.
you get to feel the Christmas joy in the and Christmas entertainment a little bit more. Because nowadays, when you look at all this technology that we have, everybody's isolated to their own rooms, into their own little corners with their iPhones and iPads and laptops,
Yeah.
and streaming, of course, and their streaming devices. So we don't have that community anymore. Even as families, like right now, I'm living in a house with different roommates, and everybody has their own room, and everybody has their own, you know, devices and televisions. But sometimes, only now and again, only in recent time have we started using the common area to watch anything.
Oh.
People bring out the Apple TV boxes, but for months, everybody just stay isolated to their rooms. So just this last week, we started playing Christmas movies and stuff like that. You know, trying to get into that sort of holiday spirit. And when you look at comedies like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, it uh it has uh it has that feel to it where everybody can enjoy it and probably enjoy the jokes more because I still laugh at it. You know, it's not as impactful as it was maybe 10, 20, 25 years ago when I would watch it, but there's still some little things, little nuggets here and there that I find enjoyable that I can't for some reason, even though I've watched it so many times, I don't remember all the fine details, you know?
Hmm.
So something still gets me. But the one thing that still gets to me, even though I remember it perfectly, is the ending with the squirrel. That gets me every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
That
Santa
without
flying
fail.
off in the distance, screaming in pain.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
and they're like, "Look, kids, there's Santa Claus." It was like, okay, that's like a good dark joke that I wasn't really expecting that
Well,
for this
and
Christmas movie.
I mean, this movie is kind of a hangout movie in a way.
Oh,
It has
absolutely.
that sort of rewatchability to where it's, especially in a group setting where it's like, oh, let's watch this once a year. It's very
Mhm.
it's very inoffensive. It's kind of tasteful in what it's doing, but it's just funny enough to kind of
Yeah,
have the
Mhm.
and it's
rewatchability.
and watching it around 12 years old is the perfect age because it's
Oh
like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not too crude, but there's just enough like adult humor in there, and
Yeah.
it's seeing that kind of awakens your sexuality a little bit,
Oh
and
god, yeah.
Oh
and you
yeah.
kind of introduce it
Well,
like
I would
eases you
let you
into
know.
adult humor. It reminded me a lot of Shrek in that regard, where it like eased you just
I
enough into adult humor without fully indulging you.
Bernard, you're
Well,
saying?
I would let you know. I would let you know on my local TV, they edited a lot of that stuff. The
Yeah, I'm
stuff
not
Oh
with
surprised.
no.
yeah, they didn't show the pool scene. They didn't show
Really?
the
Wow.
whole the thing between the exchange between them inside the shopping mall. They
Aw.
because I think her boobs were too exposed for our conservative taste.
Yeah.
So some of that stuff I had to
Well,
catch on to when I went around the time when I got like DVDs and stuff like that.
oh yeah. Did anyone else like just freeze frame certain scenes on when they got DVDs? Just out of curiosity,
Yeah,
just to play around with the frame by frame feature. I used to do that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely.
way
Um,
back.
but
Yeah.
well,
But
so it,
yeah, no, it's weird, like, or it's interesting hearing like the censorship differences in different countries of how this film was experienced, where they cut around that stuff because it might be a little too, racy for
Yeah.
conservative viewers, where she's just showing off how she doesn't have any, tan lines,
Yeah.
Mhm.
And,
basically.
and
But
here's the thing, and like when I was watching this in grade 7, they didn't skip any of those scenes. Like none of those scenes were
lucky,
skipped over. Which
lucky.
a big part of that is due to the teachers not giving a shit, but yeah, we'll put it to lucky, I guess.
Oh, I
well,
remember I remember we were watching like Into the Wild. It's not a Christmas movie at all, but there were certain scenes that they skipped in that movie and we were in like high school at that point.
Wow.
Um yeah.
I know. But let's talk about the actual movie for a little bit. And
well, I did want to say one thing about going back to Devin's point about the frame by frame. It's actually funny because I have seen people who used to work at places like Blockbuster or places like, back in the day when you would go rent a VHS, right? Like back when VHS was a thing. And it was funny because they said that the one movie that they hated having to keep in stock was Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
oh
Because
yeah.
there's this scene where Phoebe Cates comes out of the water, and you're supposed to be kind and rewind, but yeah, it was.
No. It's just always at that scene every time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's not surprising. But back to the movie, and I wanted to bring up my point where it's kind of funny to think that the main character is kind of the worst character in the movie. Like, it's a Madagascar situation where you don't think about, like, Alex the lion or Marty the, Marty the zebra. You think about the penguins, you think about the lemurs, like, all the funny, entertaining side characters really carry those movies. I think it's very much the same for this, because I really don't like Chevy Chase. Like, he kind of reminds me of Ryan Reynolds in a way where a lot of his roles just feel like he's trying way too hard to be funny. And he doesn't feel naturally funny. Like, he's no Bill Murray, or he's no. Like, he's not like the Monty Python troupe. Like, those guys are so effortless in their comedy and so effortless in their characters. And here, it just feels like he's trying way too hard to be funny. And I just felt a lot of secondhand embarrassment from his scenes. Like, there's some moments that should be funny, but like his comedic timing is off, or his response is like too exaggerated. Like, there's a scene where like he has to get another tree and he like rips out a chainsaw, and that in itself is funny, but when he did that goofy face, it was like, I don't know, like, you kind of ruined the joke a little bit for me.
Okay, so I kind of noticed some of this, and I don't think it's necessarily on Chevy.
But all of his roles are like that. Like, even in Community,
Well,
he was like that a lot too.
yeah, I mean, but I think a lot of it is the humor in this. Some of it has aged better than others, I think, maybe. Comedy evolves.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Maybe that's part of it. I know, Chevy Chase has certainly made a lot of enemies in Hollywood. He's been kind of a divisive guy, and so I don't know.
He's always on the run.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it also reminds me they tried to give Chevy Chase like after Johnny Carson left the Tonight Show, there was a rush to try and get another guy to try and take over the late night throne, and so CBS was really banking on David Letterman, and NBC was trying to fill the void, and amidst all of this, Fox trying to do the Chevy Chase show, and it's one of the worst like moments in television history, because his style of comedy never worked for trying to do a late night show, and it's all over the place thematically. There's like the comedy never quite matches up because he's trying to do like the monologue bits.
He's trying way too hard to be funny.
He's trying to do this like physical comedy, and it just doesn't fit him.
Like, yeah, I know. And the thing is, like, I guess like physical comedy is how he started up, and I guess he kind of took that to his other roles, and that's what people expect of him. But like a lot of his line deliveries, like he just doesn't have that wit. You know, like he just doesn't have
Mm.
the wit of someone like David Letterman or the wit of someone like Bill Murray. And Bill Murray was in like a lot of '80s comedies, and like a lot of those
Sure.
comedies have aged like fine wine. Like Groundhog Day is still hilarious to this day,
It's
mostly because
Oh
of his
it
yeah.
seems like
performance.
very it seems like very cynical humor, doesn't it? Kind of at its base, like he
Yeah.
seems like just kind of an asshole, and he's
Yeah,
always
he's such a
like
terrible person too. Like I don't feel bad for
it's
this guy at all.
like anytime he makes a face, it feels just slightly disingenuous, you know.
Exactly. Like
Maybe
it's
And there's
maybe
something
mean
about that
spirited.
that detracts from the authenticity of kind of the moment of the comedy he's creating.
hmm
And it's funny you mentioned that they were looking to replace Johnny Carson and they want to do the Chevy Chase show. You know that your comedy probably falls flat on TV if someone like Jay Leno gives you a run for your money.
Oh,
that
oh,
works
nice.
for
Oh, well,
me.
I really wish I could offer an extensive critique on Chase's performance and his career. However, this is the only movie I've ever seen him in, the only show, whatever I've ever seen him in. So for me, this works fine for me. I've always
Yeah.
loved the performance. I've
Well,
always
and I
loved
don't.
his
I mean, the
ridiculous antics.
monologue, the monologue he gives at the end about like hallelujah, holy shit, that was hilarious. That was one of the
Oh yeah.
genuine laughs that I got out of
I
this.
it's
Oh, it's fantastic.
I like
Yeah.
the line. He has a lot of good lines, but I don't know. I wasn't a huge
Well,
fan of his delivery.
Okay, it's interesting you bring this up because I actually saw Tarantino interviewed on the Joe Rogan Experience, and I did post this in the Discord chat. But Tarantino was saying that he basically preferred Chevy Chase comedies of this era more than Bill Murray comedies of this era
That's
because
interesting.
yeah, it was interesting because his argument was that Bill Murray, by the end of the movie, like the difference between the two of them was Bill Murray would start out kind of a snarky asshole and then would kind of warm up by the end of it. Like Groundhog's Day, he learns his lesson, he's a different person.
Yeah.
But he said what he always thought was interesting was that Chevy Chase was always
never
an
changed.
asshole from start to finish. Like,
Different
and he-
strokes for
Well,
different folks.
Yeah.
those are the characters I tend to like. I tend to like characters, as they would call them, cold performances, where their arc
Sure,
never
yeah.
really shifts, but they can affect and change around them, but they
Sure.
never change.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of characters I tend to usually like.
Yeah, I love characters like that
that's
too. Like
interesting.
Sterling Archer is one of the funniest anime characters out there, and his whole shtick is basically he's an asshole, and he just continues to be an asshole and harass his coworkers. But H. John Benjamin is just like even just his vocal performance is way funnier than anything Chevy Chase can give. But I want to give the movie some credit because the supporting cast is great. Like I love the supporting cast in the Vacation movies so much. Like I really love
Yeah,
how
I
like
think
naive the wife is, like the grandparents, the
Mhm.
grandfather is
Heavily the answer.
hysterical. It's like you wrap
The
the damn
ant
cat.
and her cat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That the cat was the
Well,
funniest
and I
bit of the
mean,
movie for sure.
Randy Quaid
Yeah,
with
he's so good.
Cousin Eddie.
Actually, he stole the show from he stole the show for the
Oh,
most
Yeah.
part.
Yeah,
Oh,
100%.
I mean,
He-
one of the other moments that really got me, like, just I thought was hysterical, and it's so subtle and it's very dry, but it's all visual comedy, and it's Randy Quaid is describing to Chevy Chase about their financial situation and how they can't afford anything, and like this is going to be the worst Christmas for their kids, and he picks up this comically oversized bag
Of
like,
Walmart,
of like the
dog
food.
chow.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he throws it onto the cart, and it's thunk.
yeah. Like
And
there's
it's
a
like,
lot
we
of good
just
visual
don't
comedy.
know where our money is going.
There's a lot of like
Oh,
good
yeah.
Well,
jokes
he
with
did-
like
he
good
did
build-ups and
say-
payoffs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
He did say that snot is his pride and joy, right? It's their pride and joy more so than the kids. So
Yeah,
snot
Yeah.
has to get all the spoils.
yeah, that's true.
Oh yeah.
It's like Cowboy
But no,
Bebop, where
I-
it's like, nope, those who work around here get all the food.
I agree that some of the best moments in the film, comedy wise, are those drier jokes, and is
Yeah.
like the turkey that they all had.
Oh
I do.
yeah, yeah.
Or yeah, no, like there's a lot of like good build up and payoff, like the tree at the beginning of the movie. That's like they kind of admire it, and like even the cinematography kind of shoots in a way where it's like, wow, like it can't even fit in the screen. It's so big, and the kid's like, "Where's the axe?" and I actually laughed pretty
Yeah.
hard at that.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
there's
and
a
I
lot
mean,
of jokes in here where it's like there's like a good build up and a good payoff. Like none of the jokes outstay their welcome. So, which
no, it's
really helps
actually
the movie for sure.
it's very well shot. I mean, I'm glad
Yeah.
you brought that up. It's competently made is another thing. Like you can tell that there was a lot of passion behind what they were doing.
Yeah, because this was a time when comedies weren't just Judd Apatow, let's let the actors improvise and just use some
Well,
shaky
yeah,
cam and that's it. Like, these movies had
yeah.
serious money behind them. Like, compare something like Home Alone to the new Home Alone remake. And, like, the John Williams score, the way it's, shot to look like a live action cartoon, like the use of shadows and live action. Like, there was a lot of effort put into the filmmaking behind that. And compare that to the new Home Alone, where it just looks like a Hallmark movie in comparison. Like, they don't give a shit about the filmmaking style whatsoever.
Well,
Yeah.
you
And
have
what's
to look at
interesting
what the
about
industry has become. Can I just make one point?
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
You have to look at what the industry has become. Everything right now is geared towards streaming.
Mhm.
Ultimately, streaming isn't all about making great content. It's just about making enough content to keep people engaged and keep people on the platforms, right?
Right.
So they're gonna keep throwing these little cheap productions together and keep throwing them up there. So
Yeah.
that Home Alone one definitely is gonna look like a Hallmark sort of film.
Yeah,
They're not trying to spend too much
Disney's
on
been
these
really
things.
guilty of that. Like, I watched the Muppets Haunted Mansion, and
Oh
but
God.
beyond the Ron sounding Kermit, it looks like shit. Like, the CGI
Oh, I
is
don't. Yeah.
terrible. The everything is flat and evenly lit, which is so disappointing for a Haunted Mansion movie. Like, and compare that to like Muppets Treasure Island, and like the lighting is fantastic, the set design is fantastic. Like, so much more effort was put into it, and yeah, but I don't know if I agree because it's a streaming service that they have to make it look as generic as possible either, because The
Well, it's
Mandalorian is one of the best looking TV
I
shows
think
in recent years, and that was shot straight for
I,
TV.
I think the modern kind of take on cinematography has a lot to do with it. It's just as the whole process of looking at video monitors and you're capturing and lighting things to try to retain as much information in the frame as possible, which on the one hand it can make your images technically perfect, but it can distract you from really feeling or emoting something as you're putting those images together and creating that kind of thing. So there's different sensibilities I think behind the lens that occur. And this is a point that I made when we watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Is that the way it's shot? It looks like a guy is looking through the eyepiece the whole time, and he's just seeing the image for what it is, and he's going with gut instincts to expose it properly and whatnot. Where the way they film stuff these days, they have histograms and all these other
Yep.
visual aids that help in some ways, but can distract you from what am I feeling when I see this image.
Yeah.
So
And the fact that
that's
a
just like a technical
dumb
nitpick in
National Lampoon
cinematography.
movie has such compelling cinematography and a score by Angelo Badalamenti, the
I
composer
noticed.
of
Yeah.
Twin
Yeah.
Peaks and Mulholland Drive, doing the score. I saw that credit and I was like, it was like seeing the credit of Alexander Payne's writing credit in Jurassic Park 3. It just threw me for a fucking
It's
loop.
it's like he I think he did Blue Velvet like only a few years before this too. Like I
Yeah.
think Blue Velvet was like 86 and this was 89.
hmm
And then another thing that's interesting with like the filmmaking or the filmmaker specifically, this was his directorial debut, I believe. I think he had done just some like commercial stuff and some music videos before this. Like if you go on his IMDb, he's credited for like two music video productions before this, and that's it. This is his first like feature film that he's worked on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and from that perspective, he did a pretty good job. Yeah, it's just, my major issue is that is Chevy Chase and his character and how annoying and unlikable his character is, and the fact that he gets a happy ending he doesn't remotely deserve, which I guess is kind of the joke, but it was still
Well,
obnoxious for me. And I'm like, you could be like, oh, it's just one character. Yeah, but it's the main character. It's the protagonist of the movie, and that's a bit of an issue.
It's kind of weird when you have this wholesome Christmas film and the center is this well, he's a guy who's trying his best to make Christmas as good as it can be, but it is
Yeah.
coming from like that kind of cynical point of view ultimately, I believe.
Yeah,
Which is
and that's where the
fascinating. And
conflict I mentioned earlier comes in, where it's like it doesn't want to be like an edgy comedy or doesn't want to be a wholesome Christmas movie. The film doesn't really
mhm.
know, and it just kind of
It feels
bounces
like
between both
yeah.
tones.
It feels like it's trying to be like a subversion of like earlier kind of Christmas films. Like we go way back to like the 30s and 40s, and you look at what those Christmas films were. Like it's trying to be like an edgy version of that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like an edgy
Yeah,
version of It's a Wonderful Life.
definitely. Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, for sure. I don't really have much else to add. It looks nice, has a surprisingly good score, great supporting cast. You know, the film won't blow you away. It's not like the funniest Christmas movie out there. Not far from the best, but you know, it's nice. It's like a nice way to kill an afternoon near Christmas, and that's my review
Oh yeah.
for Christmas Vacation. Do you guys have any final thoughts on the movie?
No, I do. Yeah.
What do you have to
Uh,
say?
so no, I was gonna give this. I'm gonna adjust my rating here a bit by just 0.1, and let me tell you why. This I matched with this girl on Hinge, and we were
Oh.
talking for a while. No, this is funny. I was talking to her, and she saw that I was a filmmaker, and we were talking about it, and she said her favorite movie was this movie, and things were going great, and then like the next day, like we're just talking, like I didn't even get to ask her out, but she unmatched with me, and I have no idea why. So Nina, if you're listening to this, what the hell? I thought we were talking about Christmas vacation, and you just unmatched with me. So I'm gonna deduct a point from my review. Yeah, that's all.
What's your score? What's the final verdict and what's the original?
A solid 7.4 out of 10.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be
Yeah.
6.9, which is what I'm
No,
gonna give
no.
it out of 10. 6.9.
Oh,
Feel pretty
fuck you.
comfortable
That's
with
what I was
that.
gonna give it.
Yeah, I mean,
I
hey, I feel pretty comfortable with that. Like
I
it's
was gonna go 7.5, but damn, what did I do wrong? Jesus, I mean, come on, give me a break.
yeah. Well,
Oh, well.
Bernard, what would you give this movie out of 10?
Well, for me, like I said, I think it's effective in that I think the jokes work well. I
Oh
don't.
yeah.
I think even regardless of which decade you live in, I still think it can connect with an audience. Most people I know who still watch it even after the fact, still find the jokes land pretty well. Uh, it's a Christmas classic, so I'll give it like a 7.2. Like
Nice.
that's like a B- score maybe around there.
Yeah, like
Like I
Chris
said,
Stuckman.
it knows what it is. It's not trying to
Hmm.
shake up the industry or impart any profound knowledge or anything like that. So that's why it works well for me. So I leave it
That
at
was
seven point
that
two.
was basically where I was at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same here. Like it's not
It's
trying to
not
be the next
highbrow
best film.
art.
Yeah,
No, not at all.
it's
Art with a
just trying to
capital
be like a
A.
dumb, fun Christmas movie, and it knows exactly what it is. Which even that's something
Well,
we don't
Oh
get
yeah.
enough of anymore. So
speaking of dumb fun, our next movie is the 1984 Christmas horror classic, Silent Night, Deadly Night. So the year is 1984. Halloween was a massive success about 3 or 4 years earlier in '78. There were a bunch of films that were trying to fill that void. You had Prom Night and other similarly themed holiday slashers. And Charles E. Sellier Jr. decided, well, why not a Christmas horror movie slasher? This movie, it stars Robert Brian Wilson, a bunch of people who don't matter. Linnea Quigley, actually, who would go on to be in Halloween 5, Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers, and a couple of other
classics.
similar classics, yes. This film is the story of a young man named Billy who suffers from post-traumatic stress syndrome after his catatonic grandfather comes to life to warn him that Santa Claus is going to punish the naughty. And boy, oh boy, was his grandpa right, because old Santa Claus, kills his father and mother, who is he's actually a burglar dressed as Santa Claus. And to add insult to injury, old Billy is sent to an orphanage where he is constantly, subjected to Catholic guilt and lots of other bad things. And one day something snaps in him. He dresses up as Santa Claus and becomes a murder Santa. And
He became the very thing he swore to destroy.
yes, exactly. So, yeah, it's one of those movies. This movie is very notable for the outrage it caused, not because of the content of the film or the criticisms against the Catholic Church, but rather just the trailer. People were incensed that children would be influenced by an evil Santa on television. Boy, if they had only watched this film. It's it's one of those movies. What can you even say?
Wasn't it pulled from theaters for a while?
I believe it was. It was pulled. It was actually pulled from theaters after Roger Ebert did a scathing review of it, where he called out Lionsgate for promoting filth. He was particularly disturbed by this picture.
Wow.
That's really extreme, don't you think?
Yeah, I know.
No,
for this movie, it's definitely a bit much. But a lot of movies were like that. Like Taxi Driver almost didn't see the light of day. And was got an NC-17 rating.
Not Taxi Driver.
Oh no, it's more intense than Taxi Driver, but even then.
Well, I mean,
yeah, but it's funny to me that you think that it's like we don't want kids to be ruined by this movie. Well, taking them to an R-rated horror movie wouldn't be the best way to keep your kids in a good loop. Just putting that out there.
Yeah. So this movie is an absolute disaster. I mean, it's kind of fun. I mean, it's kind of fun in an ironic sense. As far as 80s horror cheese, sleaze go, it's pretty par for the course. It's not the best that I've seen of this genre, and I've seen quite a few of them. But it's still enjoyable. It's still fun. I thought that one of the real highlights, there's a moment where young Billy grows up and he's 18 years old. He starts working at this department store. And for whatever reason, they do a music break.
What the fuck was that? What was that montage?
It's a montage set to this, like, cheery 80s pop.
It was like Too Many Cooks.
It's literally like Too Many Cooks.
Yeah, I could not believe what I was watching. But the film keeps doing that. The film will go away from a really serious topic. Like, it will literally go from, like, sexual assault and PTSD flashbacks of a horrible memory to, did you hear something? Oh, I don't know. I'm like, we're doing hearing jokes in the middle of the serious scene? That's not appropriate. And the film keeps doing that.
And I loved the whole, like, Too Many Cooks sequence, which is so batshit insane. But the one thing that I loved about it is that there's 2 or 3 moments at least where it almost finishes. It's like a false ending, because you think, oh, it's, now the song's over. But then it's like, no, where they just keep going.
The song feels like it's about to finish, but then they just loop it again.
And then it finally ends on this big, like, 4-man chorus and this, like, big finish. It's like a big finale. And I thought that was hysterical. Unintentionally so.
Yeah. I might actually like this movie a bit more than you do. It's not good by any means. It is not a very good movie. But it was a bit more ambitious than I was expecting. Because I was just expecting, like, a very generic slasher movie, but it's actually, like, tries to tackle, like, different themes, like themes of, like, religious suppression growing up, themes of dealing with childhood trauma and how that can affect you in the future. On paper, there's a lot of great, fantastic ideas in this movie, and I really appreciate the ambition behind them. However, the problem stems in the execution of said ideas, in my opinion. and that
Yeah,
really just
no,
drags the film down for
It's
me.
like if the crux of this whole thing happening was why did that Santa kill the parents anyway? Like it's like he just
Yeah.
Yeah,
robbed.
like he didn't take their money
It seemed
or
it seemed
I
anything.
didn't see the
so.
motivation.
Yeah,
Yeah, there
like
was no motivation. It's just like you just made things worse for yourself. You just robbed a convenience store and you shot the guy, and you show no remorse for shooting the guy. Okay, so
the
we
least
established
convincing mugging ever.
that
The guy's
that
slowly pulling us.
and he got it for a measly 37 or $31 or
Hey,
something.
that was a
So
lot
like,
of
he
money
didn't get
back then,
much out of
Devin.
it. Okay, but still,
Seemingly, the Santa's just a plot device because he had no utility other than just being the the person there or the element there that would motivate what this character would become in the future. Like because he actually didn't do anything in the movie. I was thrown off because originally I never saw a trailer for this. I never read any synopsis for this film. Originally, when I saw that Santa killing people, I thought, okay, so this Santa's gonna probably kidnap some kid or in invade some house or something and is gonna terrorize the house for the night.
Yeah.
That's what I was assuming was gonna happen, but turns out it went a completely different direction than I expected, and I actually respect that. Actually,
Yeah,
I
me
found it
too.
kind of ambitious. Actually, that
Yeah,
the trauma would influence the kid in such a way.
yeah, it actually, I mean, I kind of admire it for trying. It does.
It definitely
it fails
tries.
upwards.
Yeah, exactly. It's hardness in the
Yeah.
right place. It's
That-
just you didn't have the capabilities or the actors to do it. Let's talk about the acting.
I
Oh,
mean,
God.
you could argue that whole scene is like from his perspective, so things don't quite make sense. But if we're looking at it from like an objective point of view, like his motivation was off. But the part that I respected the most was the showing the trauma growing up in a Catholic orphanage. Like that's the
That
stuff that I
segment
found
was the best part of
compelling
the movie, as like cliche and kind of forced that segment was at times. Like I think that was like the best. It was the best acted segment I found. Like I thought the sisters were easily the best actors in the movie. Like I got to that point where I'm like, holy crap, some actors finally versus the quote unquote parents from earlier.
I remember yelling "fuck you" to Mother Superior at one point. Like I was that invested in
Yeah.
Oh,
her.
yeah.
Yeah,
in
like
her
she's a good
character. Oh,
that
fuck
kind
you.
of character, but at the same time,
I
it
was
also means there
actually
was no
mad.
like. Yeah, go on.
She's
You know,
she's the real antagonist of the movie.
Oh, absolutely.
I was actually mad that he didn't get to kill her at the end. I was like, come on, this is.
I know,
Which
right?
I think. I think that's something impressive in itself that you're actually rooting for the bad guy.
Yeah.
You know.
But on the flip side, it
Yeah.
also means she's kind of one-dimensional. Like you don't really understand her
Well, yeah.
motivations either. And I feel like they could have fleshed
but-
her character out a bit more. But compared to other characters in the movie, she is way better acted than, let's say, the parents at the start. The father, holy shit! Like he sees his dad in this horrible state, and you expect him to, I don't know, maybe tear up a little bit, be a bit upset to see him in such a sorry state, not blankly stare deep into his soul and soullessly give a bunch of heartfelt lines like he's reading off of a teleprompter. Could you do any acting? No? Okay, great. Now, a lot of actors felt that way to me, where it's just like, none of their lines are convincing. Like, it feels like they're just reading off of a teleprompter, and I thought the older version of Billy, like the actor who played him, not only did he look like Justin Bieber, which was very distracting, but he was also just not convincing. Like there was a scene where he's experiencing traumatic flashbacks and it cuts between him and the kid, and I'm like, the kid is the better actor here. How could they not see this while editing this, that the kid is much better actor than this guy?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. And I hear the second Silent Night, Deadly Night really embraces the sort of
Hey,
absurdity of
see?
Yeah, which I'm curious about seeking that out.
You should have recommended that movie over this one because it looks fantastic.
Well,
Yeah,
we'll
this
have
is
to
my
do
bad.
it next year.
Hey, something to look forward to.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is fine. You know, it to me. I mean, there's, this is sort of a genre that I'm fairly familiar with, and
Yeah.
in terms of those, I mean, it's on the lower end because it kind of it doesn't
yeah.
quite know what it wants to be. There
Oh,
are those moments where it tries to be more serious and more like really trying with this sort of exploration of Catholic guilt and repression and like like sexuality in the Catholic Church and stuff, and then it's like just another
so
80s
goofy. Yeah.
dumb slasher. So I mean, I kind of admire it for trying new things, but yeah, it's one of those that I don't know that it ever quite finds its right footing,
Yeah, like there's a scene where the kid is forced to sit on Santa's lap and like against his will, and it's supposed to be like a really serious, sad, traumatic scene. Then the kid, I was not prepared for this. Here's a bit of context. It was the middle of the night. I was watching this really late. Both my mother and my sister were asleep. And it got to the point where the kid punched Santa Claus. Santa Claus goes flying. This 8-year-old kid somehow sends a grown man flying. And with the most generic meat slap sound effect you could possibly conjure. And I was just gone. Like, I was laughing so hard that my sister, from 2 rooms over, had to come out and ask what was so damn funny, and then she laughed so hard that it woke my mother up as well.
Wow.
And I'm just like, all right, I'm back on board, movie.
Getting back to the acting, I mean, the acting is hugely affected by the direction. The blocking in this was so ridiculous. There's some scenes, there's some killing scenes where the actors look like they didn't know which direction to go or what they were doing. They would like just pause and stand there for a minute to allow the killer to just kill them. Like when after the Christmas party, that lady, she literally ran to the window with the axe, just stood there with the axe, instead of breaking the window, glass window right away, and allowing for the killer just to shoot her right in the back with an arrow. Like I was like, come on, man, this is so ridiculous. The blocking was so bad, and the
Yeah.
scene where the boyfriend
yeah.
was making love to the girl on the pool table, that whole sort of choreography between them by the fireplace was absolutely insane, man. That fight sequence was ridiculous. Nothing made sense.
Yeah, I will
Well,
give him
the other
this.
thing I
If it's intense, yeah, if it's an intense where you're trying to save your life, like you're very aggressive. You're really trying to get the killer away from you or run away or whatever. But instead, literally, he just fights him for a bit. There's like these little like pauses in between.
Yeah.
He hits him. The guy falls downstairs, and then he just takes the time to go on the phone instead of running out of the house. It made absolutely no sense.
I know.
Yeah.
But there's so many scenes like that where it's just
no,
like
the one moment, I'm glad you brought this up, because in the storeroom scene where Pamela, the girl that he's interested in, she's getting like sexually assaulted by this other guy, and it's this really traumatic scene. But they like pause the movie just to show him standing there, and it's obvious he's having this post-traumatic stress moment where he's like reliving what happened to his mother, but he's also just standing there while all of this is supposed to be happening.
I think the idea of that was
weird.
that like his flashbacks were like flashing before his eyes, and he was like conflicted. But yeah, the acting was not convincing at all. Like he just looks like he's blankly staring. It doesn't look like he's like going through something. You know what I mean?
It's like she's, and then the other thing, she's getting sexually assaulted. He at first kills the guy, like hangs him, and she immediately starts like hitting him. Like I don't know. I feel like the emotions weren't quite right. Like first she'd be thankful, but then she'd be like panicking that she actually killed him, but she wouldn't be. I don't know. It's not. Nothing in that scene kind of made sense the way it all transpired, and then he kills her too.
There was no emotional nuance in the scene. No emotional nuance. She just went on to say, "Oh my God, you're crazy. The guy just saved your life. Like you can be conflicted emotionally about it.
Yeah,
just
like
to say you're crazy and be ungrateful about the whole
it's
thing.
Such a missed opportunity.
That part made no sense.
Yeah, I would love to see this movie. A lot of people will hate me for this. I would like to see this movie remade by a competent director, because there is something here.
Yeah, actually,
Mike Flanagan.
I would agree.
I think he could do a great like remake of this movie if he does it right and he gets the right casting, and he doesn't do like the tonal change bullshit. He just focuses on a specific tone, like the more traumatic depressing tones that the movie is going for, if he just honed in on that, I think there's something there. Like, I think it could be a great movie. And scenes like that, and scenes like what he's going through at church, and scenes of, like, reuniting with the sister after all these years, like, those scenes are great on paper, but it's just the acting and the blocking and the timing all feels off, that you just feel nothing. And I kind of would prefer... I'm starting to wonder if I would prefer if this movie was just a generic slasher movie, because then I wouldn't be so angry at it all the time, because there's just so many missed opportunities. And even from like a solely atmospheric perspective, from that regard, it made me appreciate Black Christmas more, because what made Black Christmas's atmosphere so effective was like the silence and the awkward heavy breathing and use of ambient winds. Like, it just really added a chilling atmosphere to the movie and just made you feel uncomfortable at every turn. Like, you really didn't know. It built suspense because you really didn't know what was going to happen next. And in this movie, you always know what's going to happen because the soundtrack, which is great, it's a fantastic score on its own, is used way too often in this movie. Like, every scary scene I knew was going to be a scary scene because the music was leading up to that point. Because there's
like
one scene where it was like cleverly used.
You can tell the music was there to fill the void, to make you feel what you're supposed to be feeling, and it kind of just has the inverse effect where
Exactly.
There's not enough in the film itself to allude to that kind of emotion, so that we have to hire the composer from Blue Velvet to to fill in that void and to
Wait,
give
was that the composer?
No,
yeah, well, it's the same.
Well, he's
referencing
National Lamb.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know why I'm confusing the two.
No, that's all right.
Well,
it's because of Christmas Vacation. Honestly, it kind of sounds more like his style in this than it does in Christmas Vacation, so that's understandable.
Yeah,
it does. Sorry.
And I think David Lynch would make a great version of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Like David Lynch, Mike Flanagan, and I know you hate Ari Aster, but hear me out.
Oh, God.
Like a focused
version.
Yeah.
We go.
But like he's good at that kind of stuff. He's good at like trauma and drama and kind of using that to hone it to horror themes. At the very least, he does a pretty good job of that.
I would like to see S. Craig Zahler do like Mel Gibson Santa, just like killing everybody.
That's what Fat Man should have been.
Hey,
but Fat Man was a disappointment.
Should have been.
Yay, tying back to an older episode.
You know what? Do you know who I think could balance the serious, dark horror elements of this, but also the comedic elements? I think Jordan Peele could do a version of this with an all-black cast, and it'd be cool.
Oh, I could definitely,
I could see that.
Definitely see that.
I could see that.
And I think he could totally nail and strike like the balance between the horror and the comedy aspects of this, and make them intentional rather than unintentional.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame because the score is so creepy and so haunting and memorable, and it's not like Suspiria where they have 4 songs in the entire soundtrack, but the album somehow has 12 songs on it. And I'm like, no, that's a lot. That's false marketing. There's not 12 songs in that fucking soundtrack, but it's just so misused in the movie, which is such a disappointing missed opportunity.
Well, I do want to talk about there are some really cool practical effects in this
There's
movie.
some good cinematography. Like, despite the issues of the blocking, there was some like good uses of shadows and clever editing choices.
Sure.
Like, I thought the store, like the cuts to close-ups of the like toys was a little cliche, but it was kind of effective. Like in a better horror movie that could like really build and support the atmosphere. And after watching the Hallmark movie, I was like, thank God, a movie with actual lighting and actual editing.
Well, I also thought it was fun that the God, I'm trying to think, but the scene where he lifts the woman up and puts her on the deer horns, I thought that was hysterical.
Oh, that was hilarious. But again, it went from like a brutal grocery store murder to the sex jokes and throwing people on the carousel and using a poker to knock someone back, because that's how pokers work.
That actually is an impressive like practical effect.
Oh, it's a great effect.
Yeah, so I mean, it's.
But it's so
cool.
goofy.
Well, she was horny,
Hey, if that
Hey.
was the joke, fuck you.
Anyway, no, it's
In watching this film, it only just dawned on me. Even watching other slasher films in this sort of genre of the time, it just dawns on me how much lack of diversity is in these films, man. It's almost like an almost always white cast,
Mhm.
where what they call
Yeah.
a white final girl at the end or something like that. And I
Yeah.
guess in this case, there's no final girl in this movie,
Yeah, I'll
as they
give it
usually
that.
have.
Like, it tries to
Uh,
avoid like the typical like always murdering them because they have
Well,
sex and that's it.
No, I think Mother Superior became the final girl in this movie, and I think
Oh
she should have been.
yeah.
I think she
yeah.
should have
Oh,
been next.
yeah, that's a
But
product of its
it
time
did
thing, though.
surprise me.
Yeah, it is a
One thing
product
that
of
did
its time.
surprise me.
Yeah, in that
One thing
Well,
that
sense.
did
it's
surprise
also
me.
it's
That's
funny.
and
Go ahead,
that's
sorry.
exactly why I think Jordan Peele should do a version of this, just completely,
Yeah.
turn everything on its head.
Yeah,
I
just
think
as
that'd
long
be
as they
fun.
like
I
focus
mean,
on the themes that the film's trying to explore, I
well,
think
I
they
Yeah.
could do a
I
good
mean,
job.
it's funny that we came back to Jordan Peele because there is actually a deer head kill in Get Out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings it full circle.
Yeah.
What would you guys rate this?
It's a tough one because like there
Yeah.
is a lot I appreciate. There's a lot of great ideas, but I've said this before. Like ambition means nothing without good execution, and it just leads to missed opportunity. And I think this film, I don't know if I wanted this film to be a generic slash movie that knows what it is, or the kind of glorious mess that it stands. That's, it's a more frustrating experience, but I could kind of appreciate what it's going for, or just for something more generic where I could just point and laugh and call it a day. Probably
Yeah.
would prefer something more ambitious, but it's so much more frustrating to watch in that sense. And I don't know, I think I'm gonna go straight down the middle, 5 out of 10. I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would, but it is certainly disappointing in a lot of aspects. I think if the director had more experience and the actors were way more talented, I think there could be something here, but as it stands, it's just a missed opportunity for me.
Fair
I
enough.
thought. I mean, I'll be a little bit more generous than that. I thought this movie was, it was nice. I give it a 6.9.
Yay!
Nice.
He did it.
Yeah,
We've
only,
come full
only
circle.
apropos after that pool table scene,
Yep.
Oh yeah.
A totally
Oh, yeah.
necessary sex scene that wasn't done.
It
To
was
give Ainz as a
crucial
boner.
to the plot.
Yeah,
I assure
essential.
you. Yes.
Bernard, what did you think of this?
I would say that I give it a 6.0 because, believe it or not, I did find some of the cinematography nice. I did like the mountainscape shots, the big wide shots like that.
Mm.
There's some cool shots, like this shot whereby the cop accidentally shot the priest. He was just with his gun out, just above the Santa. The Santa was laying on the ground, bleeding out. There's some they caught some really interesting angles in certain parts. So I thought cinematography was nice. Of course, shot on film, so that's always a plus.
Oh, for sure.
I actually did like the Mother Superior character.
Mhm.
I liked some of the cool shots, like when the kid was peeping, those kids having sex in the room. The little eye shot with the light from the door.
Oh yeah.
What was
Ooh.
it? The keyhole or whatever,
Yeah.
shining on his eye. There's
That
some
did
interesting
remind me
little
of
things in there.
that did remind me of one shot in Black Christmas, where you just see the guy's eye, and so there
Oh
is some
yeah,
really cool ideas there. Although I think that there's a silver lining here. I think the fact that it did make Ian appreciate Black Christmas more, I think is a plus in this movie's regard.
Hey, there you go.
Yes.
But
So
to be
That's
honest,
why
I
you
did have some
recommend it.
fun. I did have some fun with the cheese. I did have some fun with the 80s cheese. The acting was pretty flat, very monotone, very little inflection. It didn't seem like the actors knew what their moment befores were, what their specific motivations were in certain scenes. They didn't really flesh out the characters very well. Of course, that's owed both to maybe the actor's preparedness, but mostly the direction. You always have to blame the director for that.
That's true
Yeah.
because
Oh, yeah.
like
So yeah,
he looks for the
I'll leave it at a
footage.
6.
Yeah, because he looks for the footage. He's like, yeah, that's fine. That's good, leaving it. And, sometimes stuff happens. Like, you shoot on film and you can't afford more films, so you have to stick with it. Or, actors can show up on certain days. Like, so much can go wrong in that regard. But at the end of the day, it is the director giving it a thumbs up. So you do make a good point there,
And
Devin.
And I would add just one more point. Just one more point I would add.
Yeah, go ahead.
It did subvert expectations for me once again.
Yay.
I really did think the killer Santa at the beginning was going to be the lead antagonist throughout the whole film, and then it kind of the film just turns on its head and uh, basically was a film about a kid's trauma witnessing something like that and becoming the killer himself after witnessing such a thing, but also because of the trauma experienced within the orphanage itself. And they chose to actually have the character become really good looking, really muscular, well put together young lad, as opposed to somebody who's like scarred and ugly. Like that's usually what a villain will usually look like to most people, right? Somebody that doesn't fit the Chad sort of look or stereotype or the Calvin Klein model type. It's always the least of these
Yeah.
would usually be the one that they cast as the villain. But having the pretty boy as the villain was kind of an interesting sort of subversion of expectations for me. So yeah, that's why I give it a 6.
Ryan Johnson would be proud.
Yeah, now that you mention it, the fact that he was like a muscular Justin Bieber looking guy, and this is like before that dude even existed, and the fact that he's like this pretty boy who is pretty fucked up. I thought that was a good subversion of your normal expectations. So I do think that there's some great ideas here. The execution kind of falls apart. It's a bit rough around the edges, but I admire it for that as well, because it just makes the whole filmmaking process more transparent. Like, you can see where its fault lines are, and as a creative person, I take a lot of inspiration in that, because you can make a movie even if your ideas aren't perfect, and it can be rough around the edges and still be talked about like 20, 30 years later. May not be for the reasons that you intended, but it's you made the thing, and there it is. I'm gonna give it a 6.9.
Saw that coming.
Which might be generous, and even though I kind of like nodded off at some point during the movie, and found some moments frustrating, I think the sequel that it bred probably makes it worth it. That's the other silver lining. One, it made Ian appreciate Black Christmas. Two, Garbage Day.
Garbage Day next year. Next year.
Next year.
But now, it is the moment you have all been waiting for. Devin,
Oh boy.
what's
The
the
most wonderful
last
time of the
4
year.
movies we're going to be talking about?
Oh, we watched Hallmark the movie, which is on Christmas every year, all the time. You turn on the television, and your parents are watching these movies, which are the movies of the Hallmark channel, which are syndicated and mass distributed on other channels like Lifework, Lifetime, and W Network, and we watched Hallmark the movie, which is what we're going to be talking about in a moment. So yeah, this is something that I just feel like I can't escape from every year. Like these are turned on, and they've been making these ever since like 2001. And there's like over 600 or 700 of them.
Oh my god.
And yeah, it's insane. Just they literally churn out like 4, 5, 6 of these every year, and I like half watched like several of them, and all the ones came out like this year. Um, and the whole premise that I had in mind for this is that we were gonna like watch different ones and then try to talk about it as if it's the same movie. So let's try to do that. So
One at a time.
the movie. Yeah, the movie opens up on this Christmased up town. It's a town in some state, and everything's very Christmassy because everyone's in the Christmas spirit. But main character, she's not quite in Christmas spirit for reasons, um, and this makes mother character uh, less than content that she's not quite in Christmas spirit. So she incentivizes her to do things that make her in Christmas spirit, um, and maybe meet man that also bring her Christmas spirit. Um, that was the premise, and yeah.
Okay.
All right. Should I go next?
Mine.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, you go next.
All right.
Sure.
So my movie was about a small town girl, a struggling single mom that looks like she had 10 facials done and wears really nice clothing, but she's a struggling single mom, I swear. Grew up in a small town, raising her 2 kids, and her ex-husband married to this total bitch, and they're rich because every asshole is rich, and every rich asshole has to learn a lesson by the end of the movie that they have to value things besides themselves and besides money, and they invite these two along to their rich Christmas house with so many decorations that makes your eyes fucking bleed. Even one of the actors even addresses this at some point. And at the same time, the main girl meets this really cute guy that's related to the family, and this really cute guy is perfect in every way. He's a chef. He's has this amazing business corporation. He runs a hotel. He's really good at swimming. He's really good at skiing. He owns a fucking helicopter. And he's just perfect in every way, except for the final 5 minutes where that doesn't even last very long. That conflict is resolved, and she falls in love with him, despite the fact that he's going to be her brother-in-law, technically. So, she falls in love with her brother-in-law, and the rich asshole family is trying to win over her kids, while the single mother tries to fight back. And by fight back, I mean really lamely fight back with awful Christmas traditions that nobody in their sane mind does anymore. And that's that's the movie I watched. Steven.
Oh wow. Well, the movie I watched was about a decently attractive white woman who
Same
was
here.
at one point a
I
photographer.
think there's one white too.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, she was a photographer, but she stopped doing photography because
Oh
she,
no.
yeah, she lost the Christmas spirit because her mother passed away, and she's had an uneasy relationship with her father because of all the grief and losing her mother. She she just doesn't know what to do anymore. But guess what? She gets hired by her department store that she works at to spruce the place up for Christmas as a benefit for the firefighters. And she meets a really cute firefighter guy. And
who, let me guess, he's perfect in every way.
of course.
And they don't get along at first, right?
Oh, no, they don't. Because
there you
he
go.
wants a really whimsical Christmas, and she wants a serious, very elegant sort of Christmas department store.
That's actually
event.
swapped in my movie, but still the basic concept.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. And she's also visited by an angel who
It sounds very convoluted.
An actual
It's
angel?
Yeah, it's a Hallmark movie. But at the end, they get together and they love each other against all odds, and she repairs her relationship with her father. And she has like one black friend who is I couldn't tell you that character's name or what she did other than just be encouragement for
No, not a stereotype again.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
yeah.
Encouraging.
Encouraging
Black
black
character.
friend. Welcome to Hallmark.
That was pretty much it. I think they have one kind of lame kiss at the end.
That's Hallmark.
Yeah, that's it.
Bernard, what's your
Bernard, what did
movie?
you watch?
Oh my god, dude! I gotta let you know, as a precursor to this conversation, I have the free Tubi streaming service, and I know they're familiar with having a lot of these Hallmark presentations. It took me like 30 minutes to decide what to watch. I had to go look up trailers because I didn't want to spend an hour and a half of my time just watching anything. I couldn't do random. I just could not do it. So I would look at the title, look at the poster tile, while I'm scrolling through the streaming selections, and I would go on YouTube, look at the trailer first, look at the next trailer, look at the next trailer, and I finally landed on this one movie. I hope I can describe it well enough. Why is it always a lodge? Why is it always like a cabin or something like that?
Yes! I was gonna
Because
say
it has to be a homey, warm, escape from the
away from
outside
home.
cold,
Yep.
bitter
Oh
world
my god.
of the bleak midwinter that we all live
Cool.
in. It has to be cozy and warm.
Yeah.
That's
Sure.
Well, consequently, this film is also set in Utah, just like Silent Night, Deadly Night. But I promise you, no murders in this one.
oh no.
So this lady, beautiful lady, she's a project manager, uh, construction project manager, but also she's a dancer. She dances salsa and merengue and stuff like that. But she'd abandoned her talent for dancing because 10 years ago she was abandoned by her dance partner and the love of her life, who went on tour and left that same small town where she grew up from. She was forced to go back to this small town by her firm, and I think it's still in LA. Yeah, in LA, because the lodge that they have to renovate before Christmas Eve is right back in her hometown. But incidentally enough, while she was on her way back to this lodge uh, to renovate, uh, the same love of her life, a Latino character, very very good looking guy. It's always good looking people. It's like a soap opera, right? Everybody's beautiful in
Yeah.
these movies.
Everybody looks like they've had 10
You know,
Of
facials
course,
done
yeah.
before
yeah.
filming.
They
Yeah.
just got their mascara done. Even the guys, they just got the finishing
Lighting's all
powder on.
blasted.
You can't. They're
Yeah.
airbrushed. There's no pores on their skin. Everything's all soft lit. Everything just got a nice
We'll get to the
white.
technical. We get to the
Okay,
techniques of
go
these
go on,
Hallmark
go on,
movies.
go
Yeah,
on.
sorry, go
Let
on.
me just get
Go
this
on.
out before I lose my train of thought. So he's back in town to put on the Christmas pageant for the opening night of this lodge, and it's also a fundraiser at the same time for some benefit. And then she's coming back to do the renovations, and they didn't expect each other to be coming back to town at the same time. But she's also at the same time mending fences with her father because she had left the town to pursue a career in LA. She brought along with her her daughter. She's widowed. She's widowed, and she has a daughter, and the daughter ends up becoming friendly with the dancer. They all have a cherry Christmas time together. She falls in love with this the dancer again. He's conflicted because his new dance partner is planning on going on tour in Europe, and she gives him an ultimatum to go on tour with her, but he has to abandon the Christmas pageant because they have to leave on a flight like in a couple days or something like that. And he already started repairing his relationship with his ex, who he abandoned 10 years ago. Then the father of the lead protagonist female told the guy about making choices and stuff like that, and all this like gushy stuff, and they all live happily ever after. How about that?
Yeah. Now,
Bravo.
the other
Wonderful!
thing
Yay!
I
Bravo.
just wanted
They
to
all live
say
happily ever
before I
after. I'm so happy.
no, I just wanted to say one thing before I forget. In my movie, I thought it was funny because there's a moment where rich white woman um, gets locked in the department store overnight, and she calls the guy who owns the department store, and she's like, I need someone to come, get me out of here because everyone's gone and I was just working so hard. I didn't realize that you guys were locking up.
Please tell me that's how it was written.
No, it's basically, yeah.
Okay.
But the funniest thing is they keep referencing like, oh my god, I don't know, like there's such a bad storm out there that I don't know how we're gonna get out there. And they never show the storm
Of
once
course not.
throughout the
Because
entire thing.
you think that's in the
They don't have
budget?
a single. No, I was definitely not. But the fire department came and got her out. So,
All right, guys.
oh yeah.
What are the
I'm glad
titles
they
of your
got her out of the
movie?
imaginary.
What are the titles of your movies, and what are some of the lead stars in them that people would know? I'll start. Crashing Through the Snow, which, by the way, came out this year, so I can proudly add it to my 2021 list. Starring Amy Acker of Much Ado About Nothing and Cabin in the Woods, and Christian Brune, who was the butler in Ready or Not, and he was in The Handmaid's Tale and How
Wow.
the Mighty Have Fallen. My God. Ready or not came back in
Uh,
conversation. There you go.
What did they say? Actors work, man. Actors work.
Yeah, they gotta get those paychecks.
Mine was A Shoe Addict's Christmas, starring Candace Cameron Bure, and I'm trying to figure
A
out
what addict's
who
Christmas? I'm sorry.
Shoe Addict's Christmas.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah. And Gene Smart
my.
was also in this. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Bernard?
yeah. No,
Oh
I
my god, I did not recognize this girl.
That's alright.
Yeah.
What's it
Oh
called?
my god, really?
What's the movie called?
This movie is called Enchanted Christmas, starring Alexa Penavega, who I did not recognize, who was in Spy Kids 1, 2, and 3D. She's a grown woman. I did not recognize her at all, man. I'm telling you.
What? Oh my god.
That's insane. Oh man, that's speaking of careers that have
And
gone down
then-
the tube.
Yeah. Well,
Jesus.
anyway, and the Latino male lead, his name is Carlos Penavega.
Mencia?
Hold on.
No. Sorry.
Are they married? The Casa Grande. Oh, it's just coincidental that they happened to have a scene last night. Anyway, so his name is
Well-
also Carlos Penavega. I'm assuming they may be. I don't know. Are they married? I gotta figure this out. I gotta solve
Carlos
this mystery.
Penavega.
Oh,
Yeah, I got.
well,
But he doesn't have the same kind of crest like her.
No.
I'm just gonna go ahead and get this out there. Mine was like a solid 2 out of 10. This was pretty terrible. Yeah.
Oh, why was it terrible though, Steven?
Oh God! It just, I mean, it is so.
But
It's so homogenized and just. I mean, it's just. It's not. It's so inoffensive that it becomes offensive. You know,
Oh, yes.
it's just so sickly
It's a-
sweet.
it's offensively inoffensive, which I think is a good way to describe all these. I like half watched like 4 of these. Like literally every time I turned on the TV, I tried to retain attention as long as I could before I just couldn't. So that's how I went about this. Because they're literally on TV all the time. My parents love these movies, or my dad specifically. And this is what I was really wanting to explore: is what is this generational divide of interest where we look at these and we're just like, ew. Where I think a lot of like hardworking boomer parents who watch this, they need kind of an escape from this horrible, confusing world they now live in and work in, and they don't know what to make of it anymore. And I feel like this provides some comfort. Like, and I get that. Like, I empathize with that. But at the same time, I want my escapism to reconnect me to my reality in a way that I don't expect, that helps me reconsider and reevaluate what I think of it, rather than just be vapid escapism. That's kind of how I see it. So I did want to mention, like, speaking of actresses that we may or may not recognize, there's one that I instantly recognized, and I didn't believe it was him at first. I watched One December Night, which had Bruce Campbell in it.
What?
He was a music manager, or like a famous musician with a fake name, who what I forget. And it's like 2 music managers must put their history aside to oversee the televised reunion performance of their rock star fathers with a fractured past. So it's one of those
wow.
kind of things.
What?
Well,
And then the one, and then I'm gonna mention just one other one before I let Steven off the leash here.
Yeah.
But one of the memes that is with these Hallmark movies, that it's always some like middle class white women. There was one that pulled a complete Uno reverse in terms of casting, where it was a full black cast, and it had the one white woman who was going to be like the wise person later, I think. But it was about
So basically,
a
same
woman.
script, different cast.
Yeah,
Same
exactly. It's
script.
just copy.
They just flipped the melanin ratio. That's all they did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's just like different
But,
diversities. It's like, oh,
but-
this
but
couple
it's
is gay
like-
now, but it's the same
Oh,
story.
It's like this the successful woman, music producer, comes back to her hometown because she isn't doing very well in her career, and she tries to get a job working for the choir of her old church. You know, it's a full
Yeah.
black cast, so there has to be a choir in there. So,
Oh, and
Um,
the
And she has to be a
star-
music producer, of
The
course.
star of the movie
that-
I watched her character's name was Noelle because her family
Of course.
really
Of course.
Christmas. Yeah.
Yep.
And
Wow.
on that note, I bid you all adieu. I have to get going, unfortunately.
Oh,
But
Oh,
Merry freaking Christmas.
Merry freaking Christmas, Steven. See you next
Good
time
night.
when we
Happy
talk about
New Year.
Undertale, and I will buy you a
Yeah.
copy of that game so you can play it.
Yes,
Goddammit.
I know. I'll send
Hallelujah.
you the Steam details. Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol?
Yeah, there
Yes.
we go. See you later,
I'm
Steven.
gonna do.
And I want to talk about my movie because about the sanitization issue in these movies. Because they're wholesome PG rated movies, there's an attempt at dirty talk in this movie, but because it's a wholesome
God.
PG Hallmark movie, it's like, yeah, I was wearing these full silk pajamas that covered my full body. Ooh, that's hot. And there weren't very many unintentionally funny moments. A lot of the movie was just boring. Like, the last half hour of the movie is just profound monologue with copyright-free music after profound monologue with copyright-free music, and that was the whole fucking movie. Like, there was nothing else to shake it up, and it was such an agonizing slog to get through. But there was the occasional nugget of unintentional entertainment, and that PG-rated Hallmark dirty talk was a big one. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
Oh boy. I mean, I don't even know what to say about these films.
I-
Believe it or not, this is actually my first time ever watching a Hallmark film. So
Oh yeah.
you guys owe me about an hour and a half of my time. I don't know how
Yeah,
I'm gonna
I
get
was
back
gonna
to
say
you
that
guys,
too.
So you guys owe me somehow.
I'm so
You know,
sorry.
You owe me 2 hours of my time, Devin, because mine was 2 hours. You had a merciful 90 minutes in
Oh
comparison.
no.
Oh yes.
Oh no.
But
I watched.
to
I
contribute,
half watched 4 of them. That was like 3 hours for me.
Yeah, you put in all the effort.
contribute to Devin. Sorry. To contribute to what Devin had expressed earlier as to why maybe people of a certain generation might still love these movies or get some kind of gratification out of watching them. I believe that generation really grew up on the movie of the week, on when there was just a certain limited amount of television stations
Mhm.
for all those decades, and they haven't really they haven't really caught up to just the streaming option that you just bypass all of that and just go to whatever streaming options you prefer or may be interested in. I mean, of course, maybe they have caught up, but these kinds of films still hold a place in their hearts. They still have some kind of merit to it for them, maybe. Because I when I was a kid in the 80s, 90s, we did watch a lot of the Lifetime movie of the week presentations and things like that with the commercial breaks and all that. Even watching these callback movies on a streaming service, you still get those weird sort of fade ins and outs where the
Oh,
commercial
yeah.
breaks would have been.
Mhm.
And I think for them that's just part of the experience for them.
Yeah.
They still grew up. They grew up in the era of terrestrial television and terrestrial radio, whereas for maybe a lot of the younger millennials and Zoomers, Gen Zs,
Yeah.
they just grew up with a lot of streaming, so they can bypass the commercial breaks and they can just go to
Mhm.
whatever grabs their fancy readily.
Mhm.
Because I know a lot of adults who still grown boomers who still watch television. They still go back to television
Yeah.
consistently.
Yeah,
Maybe
and
movies just
the
a
funny
part of it.
thing is, I didn't really notice those weird like fade outs in the movie I watched, but I think that's because it came out in 2021, and at that rate, they're probably like, all right, we're not fooling anybody. Even the boomers are using streaming services now, so let's make an actual movie.
Also, you're using streaming to watch this, right? Like you're
Yeah.
not watching this on
Yeah,
TV.
watch it on
Where I'm
Amazon.
seeing this,
I watch it on Amazon.
I think I'm seeing this on more or less the intended medium that it's made for,
Yeah.
that it's designed for, where there's commercial breaks and in between all this Christmas time indoctrination with with all these brand new products that you can buy at J.C. Penney or wherever. But like and it puts these ads in between, and it is like commercialism of Christmas basically. And I do think that it is a generational thing, like you're saying, Bernard, that it's people that grew up with movie of the week. Like people aren't going out of their way to seek to watch these. I don't know anyone our age that like goes out to watch these except to review them like we are. These
Mhm.
are like you turn on the TV and you want to see something Christmassy, it's on. and it's literally on all the damn time right now. And this is what it's and this is meant to fill that void that you just want to put something on. You want something Christmassy to be in the background while you're trying to figure out how to set up your place. And maybe you're watching the screen for ideas of how to set
Yeah,
up your
it's
place for
background
Christmas.
fodder.
Like that that's
Let
basically what this is.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
let's talk about the style, the technique of in the
Oh
way
my
they
God.
produce these things.
Yeah.
I notice that there's always this soft touch, soft glow on everything. There's
Yeah.
a very very limited palette. Everything looks like it's existing in sort of like this halo with a lot of these films.
Yeah, I know.
You know
Like
what I mean?
everything's blasted, everything's evenly lit.
Even
Every set looks like a set. Like I was never convinced
even
that
yeah.
this was someone's home or this one's someone's garage. Like no, it looks like a set. Like it's not lit in an interesting way whatsoever. Even at like nighttime scenes when it's supposed to be dark in the house, like everything's so blasted and evenly lit. And to the point where I was like,
Oh yeah.
is it nighttime? I wouldn't know this if characters weren't wearing pajamas and mentioning that it's nighttime. You're not really selling the setting here.
Yeah. Like the only thing different is like the contrast ratio. Like maybe if they're outside, you might see a street lamp and you might see dark sky behind them, but they're perfectly evenly softly lit because it's a giant Fresnel light behind a big
Yeah.
silk. It's a book light. It's like a diffused light bouncing off of a card, and it just fills the whole scene with light. And that's really like the easiest one of the easier kind of setups to make everything look evenly lit. Like this is filmmaking Generica 101
Yeah,
for commercial
it's
kind
like
of lighting. These are very commercial films, and that's exactly what their purpose is.
yeah,
is
because the old people have to be able to see them, so you gotta make everything brightly lit.
But you know, like if I was like 80 years old with Alzheimer's and I didn't know what my kids' faces looked like anymore, I wouldn't mind seeing this, you know?
Wow.
Like I have to place myself in the context of the viewers that this is intended for. These are meant for
They deserve
older
better.
people, boomers, like boomers and older. Yeah, like and you could say that, but you know, like having a little bit of escapism is fine, I think, just to have on.
Yeah,
Um,
just watch good
but
escapism.
yeah, like, but you know, I like to try to keep my wits fresh, and I like to try to see something that isn't just innocuous entertainment. Like, and actually, this was something that reminded me of, like, at what time and place do I not mind innocuous entertainment? I remember going to the hospital when I was a kid, and I was super sick. I forget exactly what I had, but I was in the most pain I ever had in my life, and on this like old school CRT in this hospital we had in town that's now been bulldozed over uh, there was like this animation on Treehouse, which is like the infant kids like channel, and I am like way too old for any of that stuff. But at that particular moment, being in a lot of pain, I didn't mind seeing it. It gave me some modicum of comfort. So I have to put myself in place of shoes where this actually serves a purpose. So I don't hate it for existing. It's just not something I would ever go out of my way to watch.
No.
But I can appreciate what void it fills for the people that go
Fair
out
enough.
of that see these.
Yeah. Speaking of
Although
void,
personally, I like personally I like to watch Die Hard for Christmas. That's just
yeah,
my thing.
that's the best Christmas movie. Speaking of
That
void,
is a Christmas movie.
yes, it is. By the way,
Regardless
those
of-
listening at
regardless of what
home,
people say.
particularly,
I did a tally.
Yeah.
Actually, this is why I mentioned this. So,
okay.
I was asking people at work just because I'm bored, like, hey, so what are your favorite Christmas movies? And some people had an answer off the bat. I said, for me, it's like Christmas Vacation or Die Hard. And this one girl just sighs at me. She said, I don't want to get into this. But she's like, it's not a Christmas movie. And I'm like, I didn't know this was a debate anymore. Okay, so I started going around and asking everybody. I said, hey, I'm conducting a survey. There's one question. There's no right or wrong answer. I just want your honest opinion. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? And it was surprisingly more split amongst like factory workers than I thought. It was like, I think ultimately I got like 8 yes and like 5 or 6 no,
That
which
makes
is more split than I.
no sense. Like it takes place
Yeah.
during Christmas. They sing Christmas carols several times. They keep addressing the fact that it's Christmas. It's a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
What more do you need?
They just want to sign it up to just say ho 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 and kids getting gifts, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I know.
Because it's a Christmas movie, man. They even make Christmas jokes. Now I'd have the bigger gun. Ho ho
Ho ho. Yeah,
Like, there's
exactly.
a lot of
Yeah.
there's a lot of it's Christmas. Even part 2.
Yeah,
Set around
part 2,
Christmas.
which is terrible, but it is a Christmas movie. That's for sure.
It's not that
no.
bad. It's,
I,
it's a step down for sure, though.
is there? Would you guys
Die
mind?
Hard Part
Yeah.
2 is my innocuous filler TV entertainment. I don't mind Die Hard 2 watching it on TV,
Yeah.
even with its really shitty, terrible overdubs.
And terrible
trying
villains.
to censor the...
Yeah.
Man, you remember like seeing the clip of The Big Lebowski where they had to censor the dialogue for television?
Yeah.
Where
That was clever.
That's actually a rare, clever example. If you watch the ones for Die Hard 2, it is terrible. How they redub some of the lines to make them more TV friendly. It's hilarious though, like how terrible they are. But the one for The Big Lebowski is like a rare gem where it just makes it so much more absurd that it's even funnier when he says, I found this is what happens when you find a stranger in the Alps, and the line he actually says.
Yeah. That works though.
Going back to the sorry, go ahead. Finish your point.
Oh no, you go ahead, Bernard. I was pretty much done.
Yeah, but going back to the films, the film that I saw from Hallmark, it does give you sort of like a warm sort of feeling on the inside when you're watching any one of them, because the way the craft did,
Yeah.
For me
It's
personally, it does give you
manipulative.
that kind of warm feeling. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is manipulative. You're right. That's what it is.
Mhm.
I believe it or not, I only first heard about the Hallmark channel maybe about less than 10 years ago. I was always familiar with Hallmark cards growing up, and when I saw an ad for Hallmark channel like on another channel, I was like, oh wow. So they have so Hallmark card company has a channel with sappy holiday movies and shows. How does it work? And
Yeah.
like I said, this is my first
Yeah,
Hallmark
experiment.
movie.
Yeah.
It's because
Yeah.
I never got around to them. So once again, thank you for taking up an hour and a half of my time.
You're
I will be
welcome.
billing. I
I'm
will be
very
billing you
happy.
soon.
Yep, for sure. Can
But
I go
no,
through a speed round of choice moments in the movie I watched?
Go for it.
All right, so uh, so okay, the hot boyfriend. Okay, so there's one point where Amy Acker is going through the hot boyfriend's room, to pick something up. I can't even remember what it was in particular. Oh, by the way, her clumsy behavior is the most obvious. Oh, whoops! Like, here's this really out of the way object that I'm just gonna conveniently run out of my way to hit it to make myself look clumsy. So she clumsily knocks a file on the desk that's on top of the desk, labeled and everything, not protected, and it falls on the floor. And I shit you not, the attractive man hired a private investigator to spy on his brother, to spy on Amy Acker's ex-husband, because he thinks his ex-husband is going to marry her. I mean, dude, first off, I don't know if you should hire a private investigator for that. You should probably just talk to him. And second off, that's a file that's just laid out on the desk. Just conveniently laid on the desk. Furthermore, she mentions this to to her ex-husband, and it's just a dumb excuse for him to admit that he's gonna propose, and the issue is never addressed again. They never bring up the fact that he hired a private investigator ever again in the entire movie. That's one. Another one is, we were talking about like budget issues earlier with the store missing. There's a really good one where she has a ski injury, and by a ski injury I mean it happens completely off camera, and then it just cuts to a shot of her in the bandage. It's like we couldn't afford a shot of her breaking her arm in a wholesome PG Christmas movie, so here you go. And there's another scene where it's like, oh, why am I? Yeah, it's like, oh, you're an adult in a skiing lesson. I'm like, there's plenty of adults that have skiing lessons. Let's not pretend like this is a weird out there thing. That's it. The rest of it is just generic, horribly acted, horribly written, just no subtlety at all. We'll just explain how we're feeling instead of acting how we're feeling. There's like one scene of drama that worked, but there's a composer credit, and I call bullshit because all of the music was copyright free. That's it. Sorry, rant done.
Wow. I wish there were some notable scenes in the movies that I watched. I really tried to pay as much attention as I can to try to find those little nuggets of absurdity that were, fun to share for this discussion, and I just can't think of any that that
I mean,
that
that
like
just
occurred
proves
to
your
me.
point that you made earlier.
Well, I guess so, but I remember having a discussion with my mom about this because she seemed a little irked that I was gonna have us all watch different Hallmark movies and then pretend it's all the same movie because she seems like that's a bit disingenuous. I'm like, yes, it is.
You're right.
But there's but I do think that generational divide is interesting of the interest in it, and I do think that there's some negative ramifications of having this completely artificial commercialized world depicted in these movies, and I've always kind of wanted to play with this idea of what is this covering up? Like what are these symptoms of having a world like this? Like what's the interconnected universe like this? What are the fault lines and fragilities of it? And I was looking
Well,
for that, but I just kind of gave up partway through.
so let me just add a little something there for you, Devin. I was researching
Yeah.
while you were talking about the history of the Hallmark Channel. Well, of course, I mean you can't trust Wikipedia on everything, but it seems that the Hallmark Channel, it has a huge conservative uh
Mm.
viewer base
Yep.
in that they find that the channel expresses traditional family values and also it steers away from political themes and stories that denigrate religion. Uh, the the original programming seems to be desirable to that demographic. So I can see why yeah, for a lot of boomer types it could be very appealing as well, you know. And it is emotionally manipulative in that it's trying to create this wholesome family world where everything comes together when you sort of have faith, or do good or do the right thing all the time,
Mhm.
you know. So yeah, I guess that's probably why it appeals to them in such a large respect.
I think so, and I think that makes a lot of sense that it would be the conservative things. But and I do think that there's like ultimately like the message of people coming together and making positive change. I do think that that is a good message. It just doesn't have enough in it that reflects a world that I recognize and see. Like everything just seems so artificial. If it reflected uh, all the problems of the world that I am familiar with, then I would connect with it more because I'd like to see them overcome some real like world problems that I recognize, where this seems to try to sidestep or skirt or avoid any of those in favor of this airbrush look at everything.
Yeah. What would you guys give these Hallmark movies out of 10?
I could never give a movie a complete like two or whatever because it still takes some effort to make something, you know. Because
Yeah.
I haven't
All
made
right,
anything yet myself personally
it's
to that extent, so I leave it
well,
like a 5.5 for
Bernard.
me.
Here's a serious question for you because we both have an interest in working in the industry. We both went to film school, and we both are
Hmm.
independently doing our own thing. If you were ever offered a job to work on one of these films, because they often film them in like Hamilton and
As what?
Toronto and
In
not
which
Fairfield.
in which in which capacity?
Um, let's say if you were there as like a grip or like a gopher, like someone that was there to get them
Uh,
coffee or
oh yeah, a job's a job, man. That's no problem with that.
Hmm.
Job's a job, man.
oh, what if you were an extra?
Well, I'm an
Like
extra,
you were
so I have
actually
no real
like
I
you were
have no real
actually
like stake in the game if I'm an extra either, you know?
true.
That's true.
What if they wanted to hire you as the magical Negro character that says the words of what wisdom near the end of the movie?
Ka-ching! Cut my check. Cut my check.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Put my name in bold caps right away.
Yeah, put me in the credits. I want top billing. I would
Okay.
say I would keep my standards and say no, but I see your perspective.
Okay. I was just curious how far you
Yeah,
would go for that, but
2 out of
At the end of the
no,
ten.
day,
no, that's
actors gotta work,
it's
man.
valid.
Actors gotta
Like,
work,
you know what?
man.
I wouldn't mind being like the focus puller on this, or one of the grips setting up the lights, because I'd like to learn how
Yeah,
it's
that's true.
done on in a professional sense. Even if like I find the end result a bit garish, you kind of learn the tools of the trade and you get experience in that regard. And then that might give me fuel for my own fire, my own creative juices to create up my own dark subversions of this kind of a thing if I feel like doing that.
It's not where you start, it's where you end up, man. That's what matters.
That's a
Exactly.
good way of looking
Exactly.
at it. Yeah.
I love the meme where you dress for the job you want, not the one you have, and you just see a guy in like medieval armor in an office or something, where you know, just
Yeah.
Anyway, this was an experimental idea on my part, just to see how far we could get into talking about these movies, and I think I let the cat out of the bag early that we did watch different movies, but
No, that's all right.
there is a shocking amount of overlap.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, there's a shocking amount of overlap. I'd also like to take this opportunity to say that the movie I watched has surprisingly decent reviews and has a 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb, a 58 Metascore. More surprisingly, it has a 3.4. It was originally a 3.5 on Letterboxd. Tropic Thunder has a lower Letterboxd score than Crashing Through the Snow.
Wow.
I'm just trying to understand you guys. I'm just gonna let that sit in and move on. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Bernard. You were a fantastic guest. Sorry you had to sit for a Hallmark movie.
But I just want to remind the audience of the movie that I watched. If they want to check it out, it's called Enchanted Christmas, starring Alexa Penavega and Ricardo Penavega, and apparently, no, actually Carlos Penavega, and yes, indeed, they are married, and they are both.
Oh, I wonder if they
Nice.
met on the movie.
And again, I watched several. I watched one December night. I watched something called the Christmas Contest. I watched basically until the first commercial break before I shut it off, and then and then I also watched Christmas in Harmony, which is the one with the black choir where they pull the Uno reverse and flip the melanin ratio in the cast, but otherwise it's the same stuff that you come to love and expect from the Hallmark Channel.
Yeah.
So.
And I watched Crashing Through the Snow, starring Amy Acker and the butler from Ready or Not. And I think the Giga Chad handsome guy has been in other stuff too, but for his sake, I'm going to pretend that he was never in this movie and move on. Don't watch it. It's boring. It's not even so bad it's funny. It is at parts, but not enough to be worth it. Spend your Christmas time elsewhere. Watch some Christmas Vacation. Or watch our next episode of Tuesdays with Moire, where the next week we are talking about our first video game on the channel. I recommended the indie hit Undertale, infamously made mostly by one person called Toby Fox. Left a huge impact on the gaming industry. A lot of people grew to hate it too because of the really, really shitty and really gross community surrounding the game, but now that the dust has settled, I think people are starting to appreciate it again, and both Devin and Steven haven't played it before. Like, that's insane. And they're going in completely blind, and I can't wait to hear their thoughts on it. And, we can't have a whole episode on just Undertale, so I'm going to squeeze in a discussion of kind of video games in general, and video games have kind of impacted us throughout the years in different ways, and I'm really looking forward to next week's episode. I hope you can all tune in. Thank you all so much for listening, and is it Thursday yet? Have a great night, guys. See ya. Stay tuned for Conan.
Thanks for being on, Bernard. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you again,
Have a
Bernard.
Merry friggin' Christmas.
And a happy fucking...